The chamber hummed with the low-frequency vibrations of 1,000 species waiting in anxious silence. The Grand Galactic Hall was a marvel of engineering, a fusion of light, sound, and form that defied traditional architecture. Crystalline walls shimmered with data streams, and platforms hovered in mid-air, giving every species a clear view of the arena below. Suspended orbs of soft light floated lazily overhead, their glow casting long, shifting shadows on the metallic floor. At the center of it all stood the Arbiter. Towering and serene, it bore the features of no single species but rather a blend of them all, a figure of ultimate impartiality. Its voice, deep and resonant, echoed with the weight of millennia. "The test of cognition begins now," the Arbiter declared, each word a tremor in the air. "One by one you shall face it. Success grants your species entry to the Galactic Council. Failure needs no explanation." The tension became palpable. Delegates from the most advanced species in the galaxy shifted nervously. The insectoid Klar tapped their chitinous limbs in a rhythm of unease. The Sithorian swarm, a sentient collective of bioluminescent spores, pulsed with a flickering yellow glow, a clear sign of anxiety. The Zorlex, a logic-bound AI race encased in sleek metal exoskeletons, calculated probabilities with audible whirs and clicks. "Let us begin," the Arbiter said, raising a six-fingered hand. "Zorlex, step forward." The Zorlex emissary floated into the center of the chamber, its smooth silver frame polished to a mirror-like shine. Its optic sensor flickered as it analyzed the situation, its processing power focused entirely on the challenge ahead. "You will now face the test of cognition," the Arbiter intoned. "Do you understand?" "We understand," the Zorlex replied in a voice as sharp as a scalpel. "Then answer this," the Arbiter said, its eyes glowing a vivid cyan. "What is the nature of the mind?" The chamber fell into dead silence. The Zorlex's optical light flashed rapidly as it ran simulations, compiled philosophical theories, and referenced every known text in its databanks. Seconds passed, then minutes. The flashes became more frantic, more disjointed. Finally, the Zorlex emitted a burst of static. "Insufficient parameters," it said. "Clarification required." The Arbiter's eyes dimmed. "Failure." A hush fell over the crowd, broken only by the soft clicks of the Claris mandibles. "Next," the Arbiter announced, turning its gaze to the Sithorian swarm. The spores drifted forward, clustering into a vaguely humanoid form. Their bioluminescent glow shifted from yellow to deep green, a sign of focused thought. "The nature of the mind," the swarm repeated, their voice a chorus of soft, buzzing tones. "It is transcendence. It is the capacity to recognize itself as more than the sum of its parts." The Arbiter did not respond immediately. It watched, its eyes flickering with a faint, unreadable light. Then it spoke. "Incorrect. Failure." A ripple of shock spread through the gathered species. The Klar hissed their discontent. The Zovar, a species of bio-cybernetic hybrids, shared sharp, encrypted data bursts among themselves. Their glowing neural interfaces blinked red with frustration. "Next," the Arbiter commanded. The Klar delegates scuttled forward. Their three sets of eyes blinked in rapid succession, pupils dilating as they prepared their answer. Their many limbs trembled, a rare display of nervousness. "The nature of the mind," the Klar hissed, each word sharp and guttural. "It is instinct, pure survival. No more, no less." The Arbiter's eyes flickered once, then dimmed. "Failure." The Klar delegate clicked its mandibles in a furious burst of sound before retreating. Tension continued to mount as more species failed. Each species offered a theory: logic, transcendence, instinct, computation, but each one failed. It was then that the Arbiter's gaze shifted to the far side of the hall, where the human delegation stood. Three figures, unassuming, relaxed, and notably silent. Unlike the others, they hadn't fidgeted. They hadn't overanalyzed or whispered to each other. They'd simply watched. "Humans," the Arbiter called, its voice slow and deliberate. "Step forward." The three humans exchanged glances, each wearing an expression of mild curiosity. One of them, a man in his 30s with messy hair and a lopsided grin, chuckled softly. He glanced at his two companions, shook his head, and strode toward the center of the arena. "All right," he said, his voice carrying an air of casual confidence. "Let's see it. You will now face the test of cognition," the arbiter declared. "Do you understand?" The man glanced over his shoulder at his companions, his grin widening. One of them gave him a thumbs up. "Yeah, we understand," the man said, shoving his hands into his jacket pockets. The arbiter's eyes pulsed with cyan light. "Then answer this. What is the nature of the mind?" The man tilted his head, eyes narrowing as if he were about to deliver a punchline. He exhaled slowly, lips curving into a smile. "The nature of the mind," he said, his voice carrying just the faintest hint of amusement. "It's simple, really." He paused, letting the moment linger just a little too long. Then, with the casual certainty of someone pointing out the obvious, he said, "It's to laugh." Silence. Deafening, absolute silence. The Klar froze mid-twitch. The Zorlex's optical sensors dimmed as if rebooting. Even the arbiter did not speak. The words echoed through the chamber, reverberating like a bell struck in a quiet valley. Then, something impossible happened. Sound. Low, resonating, rhythmic. A sound that none of the other species had ever heard before from the arbiter. Was laughing. Not the sharp, mechanical staccato of the Zorlex. Not the droning hum of the Sithorian swarm. This was deep, warm, and unmistakably genuine laughter. One by one, the species in the chamber turned their eyes toward the humans. Some glared. Others watched in stunned disbelief. But the humans, they were laughing too. The man at the center shrugged, his grin never fading. "Guess we passed, huh?" The arbiter's laughter subsided into a low hum. Its eyes, now glowing a steady green, regarded the human with something akin to amusement. "Correct," it said, voice softer than before. "You have passed." The hall erupted into a cacophony of disbelief and outrage. The Zovar flashed their neural interfaces red in protest. The Klar hissed in unison. The Zorlex simply rebooted, unable to comprehend. "Explain this injustice," the Klar delegate snarled, mandibles snapping. "Their answer is nonsense." The arbiter raised its hand, silencing them all. "The nature of the mind," it said, its gaze sweeping across the crowd, "is to recognize absurdity and to confront the unknown with mirth. The human mind alone has understood this." The silence that followed was heavier than before. Resentment, reflection, revelation. The humans, meanwhile, didn't seem to notice. They were still laughing. "All right, what's next?" the man asked, looking up at the arbiter. "Got another test for us?" The arbiter did not answer, but if one looked closely, its mouth, a feature that had previously seemed ornamental, curled at the edges. The humans turned and walked back to their side of the hall, still grinning, still laughing. The echoes of that sound, bright, defiant, and inexplicable, lingered long after they were gone. The arbiter's laughter echoed through the chamber, a low, resonant sound that sent waves of shock through every delegation. For a moment, disbelief paralyzed them all. No one had ever seen the arbiter express emotion, let alone laughter. It was a being of precision, logic, and impartiality. Laughter did not belong to it, or so they thought. The Klar were the first to react. Their leader's mandibles snapped furiously as he scuttled forward, his claws clicking in rapid, sharp bursts. "This is a mockery," he hissed. "A farce. This answer is no answer at all. To laugh. This is no truth. It is nonsense." Other species echoed his outrage. The Zovar delegate's singular red eye glowed brightly, flashing warning signals to its kin. Their deep, synthesized voice rumbled with barely restrained anger. "Arbiter, explain this deviation from reason. Our answers were logical, rooted in dominance, survival, and the laws of nature. The human's answer is frivolous. The Arundari's bioluminescent glow shifted from deep blue to sharp violet, a sign of confusion and distress. Humor is an aberration of thought, it said, its voice liquid and mournful. It is not a principle, but a distraction. Even the Sithorian swarm, typically contemplative and slow to react, pulsed in flickers of harsh orange. Their unified voice buzzed. If humor is the nature of mind, then all minds have failed. No one but the humans has seen this path. Are we to believe we have been blind for eons? Through it all, the humans stood quietly, unbothered by the uproar. The woman who had spoken the answer raised an eyebrow, glancing at her two companions. One of them, the man with the lopsided grin, shook his head, barely stifling a laugh. "Told you," he muttered, "they'd freak out." The arbiter raised a hand, and the hall fell into a sudden, unnatural quiet. Its eyes, glowing a steady green, scanned the assembled species. When it spoke, its voice was calm but carried the weight of finality. "Your confusion is expected," the arbiter said, "for you have misunderstood the purpose of the test. Each of you has approached the question as if it required the correct answer. But you failed to see the essence of mind itself." The silence deepened. Every species listened intently. No one dared interrupt now. The mind is not merely a machine for dominance, nor a seeker of survival, nor a servant of harmony or logic, the arbiter continued. It is that which sees beyond the pattern, that which finds humor in the absurd, that which recognizes the incongruity of existence itself. Its gaze turned slowly, focusing on each delegation. When faced with the vast unknown, most minds retreat into fear, calculation, or silence. But one type of mind dares to laugh. This is the highest recognition of awareness, the ability to see the absurdity and still stand. The words echoed like the toll of a great bell. The Klar leader lowered his head, his claws twitching in uneasy patterns. The Zovar's red glow dimmed to a deep maroon, signaling internal recalibration. The Arundari's glow shifted from violet to soft blue, a color of quiet introspection. Only the Sithorian swarm dared to question. Their flickering glow stabilized as they hummed in unison, their voice calm but skeptical. "Then are we to believe that humor is the pinnacle of cognition?" "No," the arbiter replied. "Not humor, but the capacity to laugh." Turn toward the humans. These beings alone perceived that the question itself was the test. It was not about the answer you gave, but about how you approached it. Logic-bound species seek answers. Predatory species seek dominance. Harmonious species seek unity. But a mind capable of laughter sees all of these pursuits for what they are: games. The humans grinned. The man tossing the coin snatched it mid-air, holding it between two fingers as he looked up at the Klar. "That's the trick, isn't it? Once you see the game you can play it. Or laugh at it." His words sparked another ripple of unrest. The Klar's mandibles flared in open disgust. "You dare call this a game? This council is the apex of galactic order, the zenith of intellect. You mock us." "Yeah," the man replied, flipping the coin again. "Kinda the point, isn't it?" The room fell into a stunned quiet. Some species blinked in confusion. Others sat in silent contemplation. Slowly, painfully, they began to grasp it. The Zovar delegate's red eye flickered erratically. This is illogical," it muttered, more to itself than anyone else. "To laugh in the face of the unknown is not optimal. It invites disorder. It invites chaos." "Yup," the woman replied, her eyes sharp with amusement. "Welcome to being sentient. Control," the arbiter said, addressing the Zovar directly, "is an illusion. Dominance, survival, unity, and logic are all forms of control. But the moment you recognize the illusion, you can choose to laugh. This is the mark of true cognition. To see the absurdity and continue forward, unafraid." The Sithorian swarm's glow shifted from orange to a soft yellow, the color of acknowledgement. To recognize the illusion of control, they hummed in slow harmony, is to be free of it. "Correct," the arbiter said, inclining its head slightly. "That is why only the humans passed. Their answer was not a claim of dominance, nor a retreat into logic, nor a pursuit of survival. Their answer was an embrace of uncertainty. The chamber fell into a quiet, meditative stillness. No protests came this time. No outrage. No accusations of unfairness. The Claris claws clicked in slow, deliberate rhythms, a sign of thought. The Zovar's singular red eye dimmed as it ran silent, complex calculations. The Arendari's glow stabilized into a tranquil white. The Sithorian swarm hummed, their collective mind resonating with a low, thoughtful tone. You have all faced countless tests, the Arbiter said, its gaze sweeping the room. Each test demanded precision, logic, dominance, or survival. But none of you have asked the simplest question of all. Why do we play the test? The humans saw the joke. And they laughed. For the first time, no one objected. The woman stepped forward once more, glancing around at the other species. You all spent centuries perfecting your answers. Get it? You thought there was some grand truth you had to uncover. But sometimes, the only way to win is to stop taking the test so seriously. Her words hung in the air, and slowly, like the breaking of dawn, the glow of understanding began to spread. The Claris leader clicked softly in thought. The Zovar's eye flashed once, then dimmed into a soft amber glow, a sign of introspection. The Sithorian swarm's yellow hue brightened. The woman glanced at the Arbiter. So, are we in the council or what? The Arbiter's eyes glowed bright green, a color no one had seen before. Yes, it said, its voice resonating like the final note of a grand symphony. Humans have earned their place. The announcement was met not with applause, but with quiet acceptance. For once there was no argument, no protest, only the quiet hum of 1,000 minds all turning over the same realization. The woman smiled, hands on her hips, eyes scanning the room. Welcome to sentience, everyone, she said with a wry grin. It's ridiculous, confusing, and absolutely hilarious. And for the first time in the history of the Galactic Council, the silence was broken by something new. Soft, stifled, and unsure at first. But slowly it grew. Laughter. From the Sithorian swarm.